Welcome to Cincinnati Soccer Talk, the podcast covering all things soccer in the Queen City. So get in touch, soccer fans. Email us at feedback@cincinnati-soccertalk.com. Now, here's your host, Nick Suberling.
Hey, what's happening, CS Tears? Man, a week off and a lot happened. Do we have a lot to catch up with this week here on Cincinnati Soccer Talk? Apparently there's this new guy named Gary going around. FC Cincinnati has a new logo, a new crest. We'll be talking about that. I'm sure it's going to be an interesting discussion here tonight on Cincinnati Soccer Talk regarding the new logo. Of course, we've got some news that came down today about Corben Bone signing for FC Cincinnati for the 2019 MLS season. So we'll touch on that and what that means for FCC going forward. There's a lot to get to this week. It's going to be a fun one tonight. Let's welcome in my cast of characters for this week. I will start with one of the Weigel twins. We welcome back Brad to the show. Brad, how are you, buddy?
Oh, man, just ready to shed some love on our dear pal Yosief here. Getting us originals back together and just want to have a lot of fun the last hour that he's with us here.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what they call a segue in the business as we welcome back to the show Yosief Sagai and what is going to be a last hurrah for Yosief tonight. Yosief, thanks for being with us. We're looking forward to having a fun night with you.
Yeah, glad to be on. I promise I won't pull a Weigel and cuss just because it's my last show on the air. So no edits for you in the studio for the podcast release.
Oh, that's good stuff, Yosief. Appreciate you being with us. And last but not least, we welcome in the other Weigel twin, the other original, Brian Weigel. Brian, how are you?
Happy, sad, all the above, emotions flowing. Last show for Yosief, last show in my original studio before the big move this weekend. So, yeah, man, just a whole new world ahead of us and kind of sad, but luckily Yosief's only a phone call away.
Yes, I'm sure our paths will cross at an FCC match at some point down the road.
Just find the pizza lady and you'll be fine.
Oh, hashtag free pizza. I remember those days. That was fun. If you are watching us live, make sure you get in touch with us. You can always email us feedback@cincinnati-soccertalk.com. You can hit us up on Twitter as well @Cincy Soccer Talk. We'll be monitoring the comments all evening on Facebook and YouTube, so make sure you get in touch. We don't have an episode captain this week, but if you would like to become an episode captain, head on over to cincinnati-soccertalk.com/support, and that is where you can do just that. All right, so we always start off the show, for the most part, with our best and worst. So, Yosief, why don't you lead us off? Give us your best and worst. Actually, if you don't have a worst, that's fine, but best for this week.
My best is definitely Corben Bone re-signing. He's really taken his game to the next level within the past year. And quite honestly, I don't know what his level of involvement will be actually being on the pitch in 2019, but I think he's earned his shot. I mean, isn't it great that this time last year we were all worried about a stadium being built, and this time we're talking about expansion draft, signing new players, re-signing some old ones? Much, much better conversation to be had, in my opinion.
It is amazing what a difference a year does for FC Cincinnati as they get ready to head into MLS. You're right. Last year it was stadium talk and stadium drama, and man, it is incredible. But yeah, I'm excited. We'll touch on Bone a little bit later on in the show. How about you, Bri? You got a best for this past week?
Yeah, well, this whole offseason always feels long, but really we're only a couple months away from games. Think about it. We're going to be down in IMG for and towards the end of January, and then what I'm most excited for is the fact that FC Cincinnati is going to be playing in the Carolina Challenge Cup down in Charleston in the middle of February. So get to go check out our buddies down there in Charleston, play them on the 16th, then play the Fire, I think, on February 20th, and then a to be announced Columbus Crew SC on Saturday, February 23rd. So keeping hell real down in the Carolinas. So excited to continue a little history with Charleston, but also getting the things going on the MLS side very soon.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun one to cover. it'll be the first time FC Cincinnati takes part in a preseason event outside of IMG, and obviously they're still going to be down there, and it's a facility IMG that FC Cincinnati has enjoyed being at, and they get a lot out of it. So, but it'll be good to see them play some MLS teams, not just in Carolina, but IMG as well.
Well, $20 says Boston razzle dazzle brazzle makes it down to Charleston because I don't know what it is, and it must be the water or something. But he always flocks down there.
Yes, he does. How about you, Brad? You got a best?
I got a best and worst. I'll start off. It's a dual best. First one is Nazmi Al-Badawi getting the winning goal for Palestine over Pakistan this week. He was a late sub, or actually 50th minute sub. Got the winner there. And then another best is Emery Welshman continuing his fine form with Guyana, getting a hat trick the other day. I think that would be back-to-back hat tricks for him for Guyana because I knew he had one back in mid-October. So those are my bests. And then my worst has to be, because we weren't here last week really to discuss it, but Louisville City getting that second star. I don't know how we left that off, but just like the USL, we know them, we love them, we hate them. You cannot get stats about that game anymore because they updated their site. So par for the course, just like we were coming in, we're leaving the same way.
Well, I will say it's much like I guess it was a couple episodes ago, I titled the episode, So Long USL, It's Been Grand. Out of sight, out of mind with that league for me. I don't care what's happening there. So that's why I quickly forgot about Louisville, or I'm sorry, that team down there winning the USL title. No, that's good. I've got a couple of bests myself. My first best, and again, I don't know how much international soccer you guys pay attention to, but I know a lot of our audience does. And, right now, the UEFA Nations Cup, it's the first year for this event happening. They've kind of taken away the international friendlies and actually kind of made it a competition. And so I got to give it up to the Netherlands. Now, if you're not familiar with what the Netherlands have done in the last couple of cycles, they missed out on the World Cup in 2018. They missed out on the Euros in 2016. Had a really decent run in the 2014 World Cup there in Brazil. But they've missed the last two major tournaments there in Europe. Well, they were put in a group with the reigning World Cup champions, France, and the previous World Cup champion, Germany. And if the results hold, if they play well tomorrow, they have a chance of winning that group with a really, really, really young team. So that's my best. I thought that was pretty impressive. They just beat France over the weekend. A team that is arguably the best in the world right now. And so that's my best. And then as a little bit of a segue into our next segment, my second best is the fact that FC Cincinnati, for the awards they were up for, had a clean sweep last week for Defender of the Year, Coach of the Year, and the MVP. So that leads us into our next segment. Forrest Lasso, your Defender of the Year. Alan Koch winning Coach of the Year. And Ledesma winning the MVP. So out of those three, Bri, which one of you were you the most surprised that FC Cincinnati took home?
Probably, I think Lasso, Defender of the Year, maybe. I thought Ledesma was a lock MVP, and I don't know, I think Koch probably was the leader in the house for Coach of the Year. So, yeah, I think Lasso being Defender of the Year just because you had the guy up in Pittsburgh, Greenstein, whatever his name is. Greenspan? Yeah, whatever his name is. I think all three of them were pretty well deserved, though.
Brad, you kind of mentioned it on Twitter, how surprised you were Koch won the Coach of the Year award because obviously you've had Ohio State ties there.
Yeah.
They never win Coach of the Year.
Yeah, no matter what they do, they can win national titles. They can win the Big Ten championship record years in a row. And Ohio State hasn't had the Big Ten Coach of the Year since 1979, Earl Bruce. And I was kind of liking it as, FC Cincinnati's had the best players this year, the best talent. And a lot of times when you get the best players in, the coach doesn't necessarily get rewarded. They tend to look at maybe an underperformer who's done well. I kind of thought that's where we were going to see Bob Lilly get Coach of the Year just because he was able to bring a team, even though that they had a little bit bigger budget than you thought. But I think you still have got to give credit. I know we've had some questions about Alan Koch's, tactic. We have some doubts tactically heading into next year, but I think you cannot miss how great of a job he did bringing this whole team together. I mean, he had to do another large refresh of the squad in the offseason. He brought in a lot of the correct pieces. When you bring in the defensive player of the year and the league MVP, I think you got to give credit where credit's due there. So congratulations, Alan Koch, and we hope he can win it again next year.
Yeah, you're right. That would be fantastic. I was surprised as well because I felt like, and again, I'm not exactly 100% sure on who's voting. I know a lot of I believe the coaches had a vote, and obviously they have some media that vote on it as well. But for a team that, let's face it, FC Cincinnati had the biggest budget. They went out and spent, and they brought in a lot of talented players. They brought in 21 new guys in the offseason. And they were able to basically pick apart the best of the best in NASL. And so I felt like maybe the voters would think, well, yeah, he was supposed to do that. But he still, to end the year, 23 matches unbeaten in the regular season is pretty impressive. So congrats to Alan for that. How about you, Yosief? Was anything surprising to you as far as the postseason awards?
I guess I had a little bit of I repressed my expectations with all three pretty much. I gotta say, Forrest Lasso. I don't know if you guys follow his blog. What the guy does on and off the pitch is amazing. The emphasis he has on his diet and making sure he takes care of his body. He deserved that. He puts in a lot of hard work that someone with his talent level doesn't necessarily could have rely on their talent rather than going the extra mile there. I'll kind of had the same sentiments on Koch as Bry, but at the same time, Brian Brad, but Ledesma, I thought Lancaster might get that one. As much as I hate to say it, I thought they might not let us get a clean sweep that they did. Saying this USL season's goal record is pretty impressive, but Ledesma was the best player in the league this year, so I don't have any doubt that he deserved it.
Yeah, it was kind of odd because as the week went on, obviously Forrest won on Monday, then Koch, or maybe it was Tuesday. Either way, Forrest won the first award, then it was Koch, and you thought to yourself, I don't know, man, there's no way that all three are going to go to FC Cincinnati. So you're just you think to yourself, well, Lancaster scored all those goals, Louisville won the cup, and obviously that was probably voted on before all that happened, but and then lo and behold, Manu brings home the MVP. By the way, goes largely forgotten, but in the 3 years that FC Cincinnati was in the USL, they had two of the MVPs. That's pretty cool to think about. Coley won it the first year for FC Cincinnati back in 2016, and here Ledesma in 2018. So those were some of the postseason awards that the guys racked up last week, and well-deserved. Lasso, Koch, and Ledesma for FC Cincinnati. So on that note, I think it's now time we segue into what will be a very interesting discussion. A week ago tonight, FC Cincinnati unveiled their new logo, their new crest. Apparently, it's the lion on the new crest is named Gary. Don't know where that came from, but okay. Well, Gary's got a Twitter account now, and I guess we're going to run with that. But let's talk a little bit about the crest. It was leaked very, very early the week before. And a lot of people were up in arms, and then turns out that was actually the logo that they unveiled on Monday night. So we had a roundtable over on the website, CST, the roundtable. A lot of us had some thoughts on there. This will really be the first time we've had a chance to discuss it out loud, so to speak. So I'm going to start with you, Yosief, since it's your last show. What do you make of the new logo? Is it much ado about nothing? Are you up in arms? Like, when you first saw it, how did you react?
I think it's the former. It's a logo. I think it's an improvement on what we have currently, and I like it. I think but what was really neat I think it's in our Twitter mentions somewhere. Amelia Wolf actually added us and showed us how kind of the line of under the wing for the Gary the Lion, since we have to refer to him by name now, follows the river. So there's some hidden meanings that they've explained that make me like it a bit more. But man, I have so many other things that I care about more with this team upcoming than their logo. I'm still going to buy merch. I'm not going to, and I don't think it's going to be a deal breaker for anyone who was going to buy a jersey. Well, I was going to buy that jersey, but the logo is just so bad. I'm not doing it. I think most people are going to do what they're going to do regardless.
Yeah. And I'll admit, when I first saw the logo, when it was leaked, I cringed. I did. After a couple days, I just kind of just moved on and said, you know what, it is what it is. It wasn't going to change no matter what I tweeted or said about it. But I will admit, when I first saw it, I was just like, oof, not good. Brad, how about you? Well, what do you make of the logo?
I'm kind of indifferent. I think at first there was the leak, and it looked like it was on almost like a navy blue shirt, and it didn't really look very crisp. Kind of looked a little muddled, or just didn't really.
Wasn't the best photo.
Yeah, and now that once I saw it on a blue background, orange background, white background, looked a lot cleaner, a lot crisper. I think it's kind of safe. Did it blow me away? No, but I think it's something that will allow the club to kind of customize what they want to do with some of their merchandise, especially their kits. It doesn't necessarily lock them into a diamond pattern or diamond design that we've seen, lately. So it gives them that flexibility. I like that there's multiple colors. So you've got our standard blue and orange that we start out with, but then you kind of introduce a navy blue. You have the white. I've even seen a color scheme where they might have a lighter blue and also a gray that, like I said, we can expand into merch or even into future kit design. So I'm all right with it. And I actually am a little bit of a fan of Gary.
Oh, all right then. I guess I don't know what to make of the whole name, but okay. Bry, how about you? When I first saw the logo, like I said, I cringed, and then I saw the logo in what we considered a digital format alongside the other MLS crests, and like it didn't stand out to me, and I didn't say, at that point I didn't say, oh, this looks really, really bad, because obviously there are still some pretty bad logos in Major League Soccer. But how about you? You want to have your say?
Yeah, I love the crest, man. It's awesome. I mean, we have all these shields all over the West End and statues of flying lions all over the city. I mean, it says so much about our great town. So, yeah, I love it. It's great.
And how do you really feel, Brian?
Yeah, so it is what it is. At least the merch looks cool. But having the Superman chest with a Superman, whatever, the Pentagon with shield with a lion on it, it's awesome looking, man. No, well, it's not awesome looking, but it is what it is. Just because I don't like it doesn't mean I don't support the club, or I still love the club. So it is what it is. I don't really care anymore. It could have been better, but I can't remember who it was. Who was it? I can't. Sorry. Somebody basically said to me is, you're always thinking like, okay, there's this mythical thing that could always be better. And I think a lot of us probably have that, it could be better in so certain ways. At the end of the day, it's not terrible. It doesn't say anything about the city of Cincinnati. We have a lion on there because it looks cool. It is what it is.
Yeah. And look, not everybody's going to like it. And we saw it all over social media ever since the leak and the unveil, that a lot of people don't like it. A lot of people do like it. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. What I don't like is people going after one another saying their opinion is wrong because they really either like the logo or they don't like the logo. That's what I don't like seeing. I don't like seeing the divisiveness amongst the fans. And I'll just ask you this, Bri. If you had to pick right now, going into Major League Soccer in the first year, would you take the new crest over the old crest, or would you prefer the old crest? I mean, do you think the new one's a little better than what we had?
Yeah, I think so because it has Cincinnati bold. I think the typeface on the FC and the secondary logo is pretty cool, but I mean, both of them weren't really great to begin with. I mean, we had Sir Cincy and we adapted out of that, so I'm sure we can find creative ways to adapt out of this.
Yeah. Do any of? Oh, go ahead, Brad.
Just like you said, it's safe. I know exactly what principle you're talking about, Brian, but I forget the name of it. It's just safe. It's, we feel like they could have done better, but like I said, I think it at least gives them the opening that they have a lot more flexibility with branding and merchandise and customization going forward. So we'll see.
Yeah. And again, this isn't the crest that's going to be the crest for forever. I mean, these things change, so in a few years, I'm sure it'll change. It was the first swing and they knew, I'm sure they knew that they weren't going to please everybody. And it was just, it was a lose. In my eyes, it was going to be a lose-lose situation for them versus the fans. But
Chris Marshall said it best. Brian probably just eats Gold Star.
Oh,
no.
Wow.
The poison.
Anyway, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Are you a fan of the crests? Are you a fan of the new merch? Make sure you hit us up, feedback at CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com. Another little tidbit that came out last week was the fact that, and Brian kind of touched on it earlier, the 2019 preseason was announced last week. And so we found out that FC Cincinnati is going to be taking part in a number of friendlies this summer. Obviously they're going to be playing down at IMG, where they will see Montreal. They'll see Colorado. They're going to play Malmo from Sweden. So that'll be kind of cool. Then they're going to, in between the IMG preseason and the Carolina Challenge Cup, they will actually head up to Indy to take on Indy 11. And then when they go to Charleston, they will take on the Fire, the Charleston Battery. And although it hasn't been announced yet, we're 99.9% certain that it will be the Columbus Crew. So when you see the list of friendlies and you see the fact that these are all MLS teams, Yosief, I mean, how geeked are you when you see the list of teams that they're going to be playing? And it's just a preseason.
Yeah, I'm stoked. I mean, it's kind of the first realization of really truly transitioning into MLS. So it'll be awesome to see. I think we'll all be itching for some soccer, probably even more so than we were in the last 2 years, or 3 years, I should say. But it'll also be a good test because a large part of this roster is going to be new. I mean, that's not different than this year, I suppose, but different level of play, and it will provide us with some time to really scope out and see players. And if there are position battle fights, you'll be able to kind of see weigh those against each other. But I'm excited to see the current players that we have on our roster surrounded by other MLS players that are going to be in an environment that's flexible, that you can see a lot of people at once.
Now, we all know that you, in your previous life, Yosief, were a Crew fan. Is that the team that you're most looking forward to seeing in the preseason, or is there another MLS team, or even maybe Malmo that you're most excited about for 2019?
Definitely, and I'll let you know why. Because there's just so many relationships and friends I've made who everyone kind of at this point has kind of chose a side. If some people are more against the Crew than others, I suppose, from a rivalry standpoint. But it's just great. I mean, when we had the Hell's Real Cup, having the people who reached out, having the people from Columbus come down, and that's a short trip. That's going to be a really fun rivalry from here on out. So the answer to your question is yes, even though I'm going to catch a lot of crap on Twitter probably.
So I got to ask, I got to ask this then. So now that the two teams are both in Major League Soccer, Eastern Conference, assuming Columbus stays in the, it probably most likely will be the case. These two teams are in the Eastern Conference Finals. Who are you rooting for?
Is that a question, really?
I'm just asking. Just
FCC
asking.
for sure.
All right. Good answer, Yosief. Good answer.
You're trying to get me, since this is my last show, you're trying to get people angry at me so they're okay with me leaving. It's a trap question.
Oh, that's too funny. No, I knew you were bleeding orange and blue there, Yosief. So,
Okay.
Brad, also a former Crew fan. So, Brad,
I was at MLS Cup a couple years ago. I can't say that I've owned anything more than a Crew scarf, but I supported them in the past life. But I'm excited for the Carolina Challenge Cup and also going back to IMG Academy. You mentioned playing MLS competition or a club like Malmo, and I think it's key. We saw how much of a challenge it was to build a squad from scratch this year, and I'm wondering if us playing as many scrimmages against NKU, against UC, if we didn't learn or prove ourselves enough, we didn't get tested, and I think that might have carried over early into the year. Maybe there are some things that Allen could have taken away where we might have gotten off to a little bit better start, might not have lost twice against Louisville. So I'm a big fan of playing the stiff challenges early, and trying to kind of weed out the problems, and because these teams have been together, they're going to find us out if we're missing certain spots. So
Yeah.
I think this is another learning step in Allen and Jeff's world, and I'm happy that they're going this route.
Bride, you want to chime in on anything that you're really most looking forward to as far as Charleston? I know you mentioned it in your best earlier at the top of the show, but
Sure.
A lot of good teams that they're going to be facing.
Well, it's just going to take us a while to gel, and it's probably going to take us through into probably even midway through the regular season to really gel and figure out who we have. But it's a long-term play. If we can make the playoffs next year, great. This seems like it could set us up for success somehow. At least getting playing teams that are on our level versus below or way above our level. So that's exciting in itself. But so I just can't wait to have a chance to beat the Crew again.
Yeah. Well, one thing you mentioned too, you felt like you kind of mentioned it, that you were a little disappointed that FC Cincinnati wasn't going to attempt to, and maybe they did attempt, I doubt it, but you would have liked to have seen a friendly with Louisville in the preseason.
Of course, any chance to beat them or play them, it's always fun to have those guys around. I mean, they're like our little annoying little brother or little cousin. I mean, they're a little engine that could down there. So yeah, I want to have a relationship with them. If we get found out by an MLS team, Coach has something to say. But if we get found out in preseason by Louisville, there is nothing to gain from that. Is what it is.
Oh, they're going to play Indy, so they're not staying completely away from the USL, and it's good too. That's a local. It's not like it's going to require much to get to Indy, so they can still maintain that. Maybe relationship's not the right word, but they've gone to Indy the last couple of years for preseason friendlies, so they keep that on the preseason schedule. If anything sticks out to me, I'm intrigued by this Malmo friendly down at IMG. For those of you who aren't aware, Malmo is the boyhood club, the original first club of Zlatan Ibrahimovic. And so that's a power in Sweden. They are a huge club over there. And so there's even talks that he may go back there. After I think things have wrapped up there for him out in LA. Clearly that didn't go well for him. He scored a lot of goals, but yeah, that was a rough year for Zlatan in LA. But there is a possibility maybe he goes back there. And so that'd be kind of cool if FC Cincinnati has a chance to play Malmo there at IMG. But, how can you overlook the Crew game? I mean, that is going to be awesome. Now, we did get some folks on social media say to us that they were a little disappointed that the first Hell is Real of the year is going to be in the preseason friendly and a game that doesn't count. What do you make of that? Are you disappointed that the first Hell is Real is going to be a friendly in Carolina rather than either Columbus or Cincinnati?
The first Hellas Reel happened at Nippert Stadium where Jibby Fall won.
Well, I mean this year, Brad. Semantics.
I just didn't want you to forget.
I didn't forget.
Because there's no chance in hell we're going to let them forget.
Right.
But I don't think there's much of an issue.
Maybe in subsequent years, but I think it's cool to get that going right now.
Yeah.
I mean, at least they're around. That's just the cool part is that they'll actually be a team in the preseason that isn't named Austin. So
No, you never know too. Maybe something happens in that preseason friendly and it encourages the crew fans to come out and attend their matches.
Yosief, a rebuttal?
oh man.
Oh, Brad with the hot take.
That was Brad Weigel. That was Brad.
Hot take
Weigel.
hot take. It was truth. It wasn't a hot take. It was
I mean, you're
Okay,
not
okay.
incorrect. I'm not
Calm
saying
down.
that. But
Calm
at
down
any-
there.
Why?
Angry twin.
Calm down.
Angry twin.
They took more shots at our damn crest than any other team. They are done. I don't give a crap. The crew are saved. I can tell you how I really feel.
I'm excited, Nick. I think it's a great. I think it's going to be a great. I mean, we talk all this crap, right? And then, truthfully, we just remember that we've only played one game against each other. So, same sentiments as Brian. I'd rather get some matches under our belt with them, probably in subsequent years, especially with how often we're going to be playing them. It's probably not going to be my preferred route to go, but I mean, we really do want to play them. It'll be fun. It'll be fun to talk trash at least, even if it's preseason.
I mean, Charleston's got to be licking their lips there. Maybe a lot of fans making a trip down for that first Hellas Reel. I would like to be down there. I'm going to do my best to be down there for that. Can you beat Charleston in February? Sure beats Toledo. I'll tell you that much.
Mr. PTO with a fresh set in a new year. I'm sure he'll be down there.
The razzle dazzle brazzle will be. I'm sure he's already got. He's figuring out his carpool right now.
Dude, he's got a serious decision to make this year or for 2019. Is he going to be a Tampa Bay Rowdy supporter or a Battery supporter?
All right. What? You next.
Brian, wake up over there. You're asleep. It's like you've been moving all weekend or something.
Dude. No idea.
On that note, before we move on, this is the time of the show where we give a big shout out and thanks to our wonderful supporters. So let's give it up first and foremost to King's Hammer and Tim Bronsel. We have to give a big shout out to Tim Bronsel. Congratulations, Tim, and more importantly, congratulations to your son, Will. Signed his letter of intent to go play college soccer at John Carroll University. So congrats, Will, on your next step in your college career there. Let's also give thanks to Matt Adamczyk, Mama Subs, Brian Malone, Jamie Smid, Mike Hudson, Jonas Tom, Jack Emery, Mike Bowman, Kathleen Francis, Jesse King, Teresa Everidge, Matt Imholt, Segan Sagai, and Matt Long. Thank you so much for supporting us here at CST. To learn more about how you can support the show, head on over to CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com/support. And if you haven't had a chance this week, we were very fortunate. Our good photographer, Jeremy Miller, got out to the Mercy Health Training Center and fired up the old drone and was able to get some really great aerial shots of the new training center coming along very nicely. Field turf field has been completed there at the back of the complex as they now make their way forward and starting progress there on the turf fields. Looks like progress is, on schedule. Everything is going well there. How excited when you see the field turf field in place, guys? How excited? I mean, does the fact that this is actually happening, has it set in?
I mean, realistically, they could be playing on that field in 50 days, 40 days, something like that. Like, they could be getting ready to get preseason going in really, really freaking soon. So, yeah, it's awesome.
Was it last preseason started January 15th? It's November 19th. So we got 2 months.
Yeah.
It's right there. The question is, will they have a bubble before the Bengals?
You know how
yeah, that hard? That's not even a question.
You know how many? Because obviously, in my past, I hosted a Bengals podcast. You know how many Bengals fans, when I tweeted out that practice facility how many Bengals fans tweeted at me asking if they were going to get a bubble before the Bengals. And I'm pretty sure, yeah, it's going to happen before the Bengals will. There's no question about it.
Okay, I mean, they have to do something. It's so cold in January, and I'll tell you what: if you have these $1 million players, $2 million players go and practice at the UC bubble, and the UC's great, their athletics facility's great, but that turf under that bubble is atrocious. So I know they were complaining about that this past preseason. So they got to do something. They're gonna have to do something most likely. So.
I mean, if they report the 15th or something like that, the first
before then, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the first match down at IMG is the 30th, and I was trying to find the.
They actually head down to IMG on the 26th of January.
Okay, so I don't think they're going to be there too long.
Yeah, they might show up around what Brad said, like I don't know, let's see, the 16th, 15th, 16th of January.
According to the release from FC Cincinnati, they said that it was mid-January is when players were expected to report. So,
got to get those entry physicals.
And we move on. Let's talk.
He woke up. He woke up over there.
Shut up.
I was going to say, is that turf must have really caused some problems. Nothing. Crickets. All right. Anyway, we move on.
I'm sorry. No, Tina Harris says the turf is going from Nippert to the practice facility, so maybe the practice facility at UC is going to be better. I don't know. I'm trying to read what she's saying. I haven't heard that.
Nippert, I don't know either.
I doubt it. I don't know. Maybe we'll see.
No, they're not moving the turf from Nippert because they're playing on the turf at Nippert currently. Like the football team is.
Right.
So they can't move it right now because the turf's already down.
Right. But I thought they were going to move it at the end of the year. Maybe not. I don't know.
No.
To where?
Maybe they're going to put new turf in, like a new field turf in, but they're not going to move the existing field turf. No, they won't.
That's what Tina says. I trust Tina. After the season.
I don't know where are they going to move it to?
No, probably where the bubble's at.
Oh, okay. That's what they're talking about. Sorry. Got it.
Practice bubble, so there will be better turf than what's present where the practice bubble will be for UC.
It's like they're not moving that field turf at Nippert down to Milford.
No. The Milford turf's already laid.
Brand new.
In
Milford.
So, we had some other news last week. Alan Koch did an interview on Sirius XM FC, and Sam Stachel from MLS also reporting this as well. A term we're going to be hearing quite a bit here in 2019 and possibly even 2020, fiscally responsible. And Arsenal fans who are fans of FC Cincinnati are probably cringing right now when they hear fiscally responsible. Basically what that means is they're not going to go break the bank on players with the understanding that, look, they're investing a lot of money into this stadium. I'm not worried about any of that for right now. What I'm worried about is 2019. At one point, it was reported that FC Cincinnati was going to bring in a second DP. Now it's sounding like maybe they're pumping the brakes on that a little bit. Maybe they had a bad experience with everything that went down with Fabian Johnson. I don't know. But when you hear reports and when you hear stuff like this, Bri, are you thinking this is FC Cincinnati strategically saying this so that maybe it drives down prices? What do you make when you hear only going to have one DP and fiscally responsible?
I mean, I think there's so many different angles for this thing, but honestly, I'm a fan of the club for the long term. And do I want to win a Major League Soccer championship in year one? Yeah, freaking that'd be awesome. But we're not going to do it without splashing the cash, without huge transfer fees. And in a market like Cincinnati, without a revenue generator of the new stadium, I'd rather them put that several $1 million that they could use in a transfer fee for Carlos Vela to maybe get the academy going, put the money, fully fund the academy right away, get that going and start reaping rewards in the next, 5-10 years versus, mortgaging potentially the future a little bit with trying to get a flashy signing. So I still think they're going to go out and get a couple max contract players. Does it mean DP? All that I mean, you're able to buy down DP contracts now these days with TAM and GAM, all that stuff, discretionary TAM. So I'm not too worried. I think you could go get guys who are at that, $500, $600, $700,000 level without real, and still be fiscally responsible. We were talking about this off the air, and Ozzie Alonso, who could become a free agent with Seattle, he was making 1.14 million last year, and we were saying, he would be a great fit at FC Cincinnati. He's a veteran, he could mentor people, but you're going to have to splash the cash for him, and I'd rather save that money right now and maybe spend it in a couple of years versus right away and trying to just spend all this money to fight for a playoff spot, which we'll see.
Is it possible? And by the way, if you're not familiar with GAM and TAM and discretionary whatever, go back and listen to the previous episode with Jeff Reuter, who did a great job of explaining it. I sat through that episode for an hour and a half, and I still don't know what Brian just said, so I'm still learning this as well. But let's play this because obviously we've got the expansion draft coming up here in a few weeks, Bri. And again, I'll be the first to admit, when it comes to Major League Soccer rules and player movement rules, I'm very new and very raw at this. But could Seattle sign him to a new deal and then not protect him in the expansion draft?
I don't. Yeah, I guess theoretically, it's all about when the year ends, I would think. FC Cincinnati basically would, if Seattle didn't sign him, or even if they did sign him, I guess FC Cincinnati could still get his rights somehow if they're not protected. So yeah, it's possible.
Let's get back to that.
Yeah,
that's
sure.
The responsible strategy.
Yeah.
Before we move down that rabbit hole.
Sorry.
I think the key here, a couple things came out of this, and Bobby Warshaw and the guys at MLS Extra Time Radio did a fabulous job discussing this article, and they were all on board with this strategy because there's a couple things here. One that we mentioned Luke Sassano mentioned that he's going to have all $2.8 million of discretionary TAM available. Now, are they going to use it all? No, but he's saying that it's fully available. The discretionary TAM, if you need a refresher, that's money that the club itself actually has to pay, not the 1.2 that MLS gives you to go out and bring in new talent. So that's going to encourage them to get, those better players that might be positions 4 through 7, 8, 9. Okay. So that's key. And when you're going out there and you're putting a humongous outlay of cash on this stadium, this is how you're going to have to build that club. You've got to do it the right way because, come this January transfer window, most of the rest of the world's playing right now, while MLS is on the bench. So, an MLS to MLS transfer, it's probably going to be some sort of exchange of GAM and TAM, and you're not going to get a DP. So you would have to go overseas probably to get a DP, and that would be extremely, extremely expensive. So I think they're doing it the right way, doing what they can with this TAM, managing their money right now, and then once they find out what they really, really have between the USL players, which they're going to bring up, which we'll discuss later, some of their signings, which, Jeff Reuter said, we're not going to hit on all of them, so we can fill in the gaps. And you know what? I think their goal is to see if we can get just to that edge of the playoff spot. If we can get just to that, within touching distance, I think Jeff Birding is going to free up the pocketbooks for Luke Cassano and Alan Koch to go out there and get the pieces they need. Will it be a $25 million DP? Probably not. We're Cincinnati. But I think that the pocketbook will be open if we are within striking distance.
Yosief, when you hear fiscally responsible, you're our financial advisor here on the program. When you hear fiscally responsible, what does that mean to you when it comes to soccer?
I think it means Antoine Griezmann confirmed, right? Isn't that? No. Yeah, be smart. I agree wholeheartedly with Brad. We don't need to YOLO a DP just to have a second one. Find out what you need. The window will open in August. Teams will be more flexible if you really, really want to sign a second one for the playoff push. I I don't see a benefit with so much roster transition to sign something before we really know what we need. Sign someone unless there's a real. And I said it jokingly with Griezmann because he's not moving in here for several years, and he'll be way too expensive. But you got to understand what you have, what gaps you need filled, and truthfully, you can build a team. Build a team with what we have based on being fiscally responsible. We don't want to get tied into something where we get a player who can't play the games that we need. I think would it be awesome to go out and sign a banger DP that everyone knows we crushed and it's super exciting for promoting purposes? Yeah, but as we said, long haul. I would rather at the soonest get one in August when we know what we need and we're in a bit of a playoff push. But if it's waiting until next year, it's not the end of the world because that money is going to be super important and we want to make sure it's going to something that's worthwhile and something that we know we're not going to miss on.
Well, so I do have one issue about this whole thing is if we're not going out and still buying guys around that max contract level, I mean, I still don't want to just be like, okay, let's try to get all these bargains and see if one hits. I mean, we'll still need to go out and get quality players, which I'm not worried about. But if we can go maybe pull like a guy like a Darlington Nagbe that makes $600,000-$700,000 a year under that DP threshold because he's bought down. I still want a couple of those guys, but I'm saying I don't think you necessarily need to go out and get the $10 million transfer fee kind of guy.
We're not Minnesota United here, where we're pulling this roster together. Really, when Adrian Heath was brought in, it was in November, right? Okay.
Or January.
It was, I think it was this time. That's the point. Okay. We've had Luke Sassano in place for 6 months. He's brought in Jorge Alvial in a scouting department that is, we've heard it. Alan Koch said it on Jason Davis's show this week. They've been worldwide. Alan's been in Europe. Luke Sassano's been in Europe and South America. Alan mentioned on the show, I believe, was that I think it was, I'm assuming just because I saw Jack Stern playing video games today, that it was Johan de May who's gone down to South America this week. So they're spending money to find the right players. It's just going out and getting a large DP right now might not necessarily be the best move, for their current situation. So I'm not worried, but I still think they're doing the right things that fundamentally will set them up for success long term. That's the key. We don't need to go out and get an older DP like a Lampard or a Gerrard that give you a big old goose egg for a couple of years. They're doing it. I think they're doing it the right way. And does anybody here think that Jeff Birding's going to be okay with a losing team?
No,
not at all. We're winners, right?
What we do. That's what we do. Yeah. Look, I would love for them to go splash the cash. But I also think that it's also safe to wait until the summer because you don't know what you're going to have. This is going to be thrown together so last minute that Alan Koch has no idea what's going to be on the field when he shows up in January for preseason, when these guys report. It's going to be thrown together. He's going to probably tinker with it for a good 10 or 15 games, and then he can, get with Luke Sassano and say, okay, here's what we've got. Here's what we need. Can we get that player? And then that's where things are going to progress. I mean, look, it's not going to be pretty at times this summer. Obviously with an expansion side, it's not. I would lay the expectations that this is not going to be LAFC, but as Brad said, this isn't going to be Minnesota United by any stretch of the imagination. So pump the brakes a little bit on the DP. Don't fret. Don't freak out that people all of a sudden thought that FC Cincinnati decided to scout South America this week. No, they've been scouting South America since the club started 2016. I mean, let's be real there. But part of the roster build is going to involve bringing in guys from USL. And one of those guys signed today, or was officially announced today, that Corben Bone will be on the MLS roster for 2019. Now, Jeff Reuter last week also reporting that Jimmy McLaughlin will be on the 2019 MLS roster. We also have a hunch that Manu Ledesma from Jeff Carlisle on ESPN.com has signed a contract with Major League Soccer. We also think Forrest Lasso is going to be here next year as well. So they're going to do it by bringing in guys that Allen is familiar with. He said it this week on the Jason Davis show that, he really liked the locker room and where things were. It was a good group to have, a good foundation to start with. So we see the news today about Corben. When we hear about Jimmy and we hear about Forrest Lasso, and then we see, Kenny Walker, maybe based on what he posted on social media this week, maybe he's not going to be making the jump to Major League Soccer. But when you saw Corben Bone signed today or announced today, Bri, what went through your mind? Is this a good signing? Was this kind of a no-brainer from an FC Cincinnati standpoint?
Well, Brad and I were kind of talking about this with a friend of ours, how you need guys that know where to run and know how to attack, kind of get forward and attack space, not necessarily guys that just kind of hope and pray and make highlight reels. You need the guys like Jimmy and Corben that attack the channels and can get forward and make an impact off the bench. So I think that he fulfills a need. I think he's deserved it, if you can say that. But yes, I think more importantly, he does fill a role, and he's proven over 3 years that he can do that. Is it going to be a little bit different of a level? Sure, but he's been at this level in Major League Soccer. I think he's grown and adapted in FC Cincinnati. So, yeah, I'm actually pretty positive. I think it's a strong pickup, and many teams would be lucky to have a guy like him.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Brian. I think out of the CST guys, I'm a little more hesitant to praise how many guys we're bringing up from USL, but I'm actually big on this Corben Bone signing because I was looking through his highlights, and you think about this. He had more, I want to say, assists and goals that looked like MLS goals, not necessarily moments of brilliance, as we've come to said sometimes this year, but like he's made the great passes, the great through balls in between traffic, making the smart runs, mercurial runs that he actually might see some time. I mean, think about this. The last 2 seasons, FC Cincinnati has brought in players to replace him, and all he's done is increased his level. And we saw his performances in the Open Cup, how he's done. I think you're going to see another increase in the level. This guy's a competitor, and I think he's going to bring it. I think out of the players outside of the Audis and the Alashes and maybe Ledesma, I think Corben Bone is going to be that one player that you see get a lot more appearances than you might think heading into next season.
Yosief, go ahead, Yosief.
Yeah, no, I just think sometimes it's lost on people, like the logistics of creating an MLS roster, garnering that many players who can compete, even the ones who are not going to be playing regularly. So when you have somebody like Corben, who, he has had a cup of coffee in MLS in the past. He's played really well. Like you said, the word deserved was thrown around. His play this year, I know Ledesma was the MVP, but how many times did that guy come in the clutch? Corben Bone was clutch as hell this year. And really, as you said, we want to make sure we're carrying players that we know. He's probably one of those players that we're going to actually see get time, even if it's in a bench role, but we really, really have some roster spots to fill. As great as Luke Sassano, Alan Koch, and our coaching staff is, it's a tough task. So when you have a layup of somebody that can compete on an MLS roster, and whatever level of his playing time and role may be left to be determined, but you got to take him if he's willing to come back.
Now, if you're a fan of the Extra Time Radio podcast, like many of us are here, and Brad is a big fan of Bobby Warshaw, Bobby dropped this bombshell on us in this last episode, saying that Jimmy McLaughlin thinks he's Giovinco. So, Brad, when you heard that, how much did you chuckle? And when you hear reports that he's coming back, how much does that excite you?
Oh man, I'll tell you what. I definitely can see it. Jimmy is one of the few guys on this team that likes to run at players and likes to take chances, and I'm great with that. And I actually do think he has a role. I think he has the speed to compete, especially in practice. But he really needs to improve in front of goal. And I think again he has a role. I've got to be careful here because a lot of people love Jimmy.
Sure,
I
we do.
think he's great. This one was a little iffy for me. This definitely was a little iffy for me signing. Go prove it to me. Go prove that you've earned this roster spot. I'm gonna trust Luke Sassano and Allen and see what they see here. And I think Jimmy's speed and he's still a young player, so hopefully we'll get him on one of those reserve minimum deals and at worst it'll be a value signing to fill out the roster. Excited for him, but again, I'm not sure about it.
Yeah. He was one of those roster bubble guys that we were on the fence about whether or not they were going to bring him back to the Major League Soccer roster. It's not official. It has not been announced by the club, but Jeff Ruder from The Athletic is reporting that is a done deal. I'm going to check to see if Brian is still awake over there. So Brian, he is awake. Okay, good. We've heard that the club is making a lot of guys wait as far as decisions for next year. Can you kind of explain why that might be?
Well, I mean, I think you have the expansion draft coming on, and people need to see, or I guess the club needs to see who they can grab and who's eligible. I mean, there's no reason why you would lock up, certain members of the team on USL contracts when there's a guy that theoretically is a higher level player available that you might not expect right away. So I think it makes sense. I think a lot of these guys are willing to take, wait a month or so, or less than a month right now, really, to figure out their future. We've seen a couple guys go back to their homes, like Lahoud's in California, Richie's back in Vancouver, it looks like, and then you have other guys that have stuck around. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. I think there's a lot of questions out there, but a lot of guys really had positive experiences, and are willing to take a wait and see approach.
I think a thing that is key when keeping in mind why aren't we hearing more signings, and you talked about the expansion draft, Brian. I think the point you might have missed here is if FC Cincinnati goes out and let's say they know we've brought back, I don't know, Patty and Lasso, or let's say we're bringing in a couple forwards, or you may be locked into a certain position. Okay, so let's say we do sign 2 center backs, or we lock them up early. That might cause a team to maybe put one of their center backs out there, not protect them on they might be on the fence about, they might not protect them because they think FC Cincinnati, probably won't take a center back. So then that keeps them, then they're able to keep one of their young midfielders they like or something like that. So I definitely understand why FC Cincinnati is being strategic. They don't want to show their cards too much because they don't want to give some of these teams an idea of who they should or shouldn't protect based upon on who FC Cincinnati signed. They want to get every single player that's available to them, and I don't blame them for that. And these guys are professionals, and it's part of the business.
It also wouldn't shock me too, and Yosief might think differently, is there I could definitely see some of these guys stick around for like preseason camp and see, you have some spots open and bring guys in and trial them. And I know Lance Lang spent some time up in Minnesota in a similar role to see if he could kind of play at that level. So I would be open to keeping a couple guys around like a Hoyt and see what happens.
And one other thing I missed, Nick, sorry. December 9th, you have that half-day trade window before you've got to lock up players. So that's another reason, if you can get, a backup wing back through that transfer window that you might like a little bit more, you do it there, and that keeps you from having to waste a roster spot. So I think signing Lasso and signing Jimmy to these reserve minimum deals, I think that's might be is max what we see for another month. And then, once we see that expansion draft, I think you'll see them all starting to roll in.
I'm just glad that, we know we're going to see a few people. The kind of credibility that it provides when Jimmy McLaughlin says hi to you at Sleep UB. You can't make that up. No, but really, I'm going to what Brian said. It's going to be like one in the hand, two in the bush kind of thing. How many of these players are going to want to stick around for a trial when they can lock up a livelihood elsewhere. So I think it's going to be a balance. Think you will see some people leave, but there are definitely some people who deserve a trial. I mean, they might not sign them directly, but that's how you prove yourself, man. That's how a lot of people prove themselves to get on this club in the first place. So
it's going to be an interesting few weeks, to say the least, with the expansion draft coming up. My guess is we probably won't hear, of course, as I say that, I'm sure FC Cincinnati getting their press releases ready for this week for all the guys to bring it back. So I'll say we maybe won't hear anything before the expansion draft, and sure enough, they'll go out and release that information. What we do know is that that's coming up here very soon, just around the corner of that expansion draft. And we'll have it covered right here on CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com. One thing that we've been doing I'm really impressed with Brad. This week he on the website over at CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com, you got to go check out his Super Draft article. He previewed and covered 5 really, really, really good collegiate soccer players. Unfortunately, 3 or 4 of them were knocked out of the College Cup over the weekend, but he was spot on with at least I know of 2 of them that I watched where I thought, wow.
To be fair, Benji Michel knocked out Muhammad Kamara, who was actually on trial here this summer, and then JJ Williams knocked out Benji Michel. So a little bit there, but the only one that I think I'm really high on the JJ Williams or the Benji Michel. We've seen them up close in person, both high quality players. And I think you've seen some other people chime in nationally, especially on the Benji Michel. He might be one that we're looking at here, and in 2 months come the draft. The guy was unbelievably fast, and I think that if he would have had some of the talent surrounding him like J.J. Williams did, I think you might have seen a little bit better performance against UK in that second round game.
Now, I'm no soccer scout by any stretch of the imagination, but what I watched in the 2 matches of Benji Michel, just these past 2 matches, I'm willing to put money on the fact that if he were to be an FC Cincinnati player, he would be the fastest player in the club's history. I mean, he was lightning fast. We thought Dakers was fast. At least Boston did. But Benji Michel, my goodness, can he fly? Now, it's a contrast in styles. J.J. Williams is a bruiser. He's built like a linebacker playing forward for the University of Kentucky, and he just manhandled Portland's defense over the weekend. So he'd be a fantastic addition as well. Rumors are that he's looking to go pro and could potentially be a guy maybe FC Cincinnati has their eye on. But again, we're going to be continuing to break down the Super Cup. I'm sorry, the Super Draft and the College Cup that's going on right now over at the website CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com. What's next for that series, Brad?
It's going to be a mix. We're going to have Travis Clark coming on towards the College Cup. He's going to break down some players we might see, because in this article just this week we looked at only players that made the NCAA tournament. So there's definitely a lot of talent outside of the teams that made this tournament this year that are going to be coming out. But there's going to be a lot going forward. Good.
I was going to ask.
I know you're going to ask me this. I know. Hold on. I want to say it's like Syed.
Well, no, I was going to ask you about the consensus number 1 pick that everybody thinks he's the lock, the guy from Denver. You watched him over the weekend, and you weren't all that impressed.
Yeah, Air Force played a hell of a game. Andre Shin, I don't know how to say it. It's like Shinyashiki.
Yeah, good luck.
Shinyaki. Yeah. Okay, so he's had 28 goals this year. A lot of talent. Really interested to see what he does in the combine. You put him around a lot of other talent. He actually, out of the 5 players that I looked at, he was the only senior, so he's definitely going in the draft. The others need a Generation Adidas contract, which actually, if they do sign, might make them more attractive to FC Cincinnati, because that salary doesn't have to go on the senior roster books. So that's definitely something to look at when we don't have the homegrowns. We need to protect those roster spots. So
yeah.
But I'm interested to see what he can do. But if you're talking about the top 3, I asked several people the top 3 players, and it was definitely Andre Yashiki of Denver. Yeah, sorry, Benji, Michelle, and JJ.
Yeah. I watched a little bit of Denver's game over the weekend, but the camera angle was rough. And at one point, the sunlight was like literally shooting right into the camera, which made it impossible to see the game. So at that point, I switched over to watch Michigan Notre Dame, which went 12 rounds of penalty kicks. Man, that was brutal. But yeah, again, we're going to have it covered over at CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com. Brad did a great job this past week, so make sure you go check that out. I'll include a link to Brad's article in this week's show notes as well, so you don't miss it. Speaking of the website, we are really excited to welcome, since we last did a podcast, we're excited to welcome in the newest members of Cincinnati Soccer Talk. We welcome in Jeff Wallner. Jeff joins us. He covers the Reds and Bengals and UC and does a lot of great work over at WCPO.com. He's got almost 25 years of journalistic experience joining the CST staff. So we're really thrilled to have him on board with us and looking forward to him getting to practice, covering the team for us, and just helping us take the next step as far as our Major League Soccer coverage as well. We're also thrilled to welcome three new guys, three new staff writers as well. Jacob Clary, Paul Barvinchak, and if I said your last name, Paul, incorrectly, I apologize, but I think I got it right. And Chris Asbrock, and they're going to be fine additions to the CST staff. So really looking forward to what they bring to CST. And again, help us continue as things happen. We are going to be busier and busier with news and roster updates and player movements and drafts. And it's just going to be, we got to step up our game, and we're really excited for what these four bring to the CST staff. On that note, it's time we wrap things up. I'll start with you, Bri. Any final thoughts as we get out of here?
Yeah, just, the club didn't make these players that have been around. They made the club. They rubbed off on the club. They left their mark. A certain man tonight also did that. Left his mark on CST. CST didn't make Yosief. Yosief made CST. So, Yosief, love you, buddy. And you better be calling back in on one of these free-for-alls.
If we have a live show, we just got to have pizza. He'll be there, right?
His mom will make him come.
Maybe the next live show needs to be at like a pizza joint.
Hey, he'll still be there at the foot golf event. I need them volunteers, brother.
Before we get to the final thoughts of Yosief, Brad, how about you? You got any final thoughts?
Oh, Yosief knows the entire FC Cincinnati nation loves him, and it's amazing still going down in the Bailey. I know he doesn't like it, but how many people come up to him and say, "Hey, Yosief." So we just all love him. He's the world's most likable guy. I am blessed to have had him enter my life 3 years ago, and I know we'll stay close friends. So, dude, I love you. You got big things going on ahead in your life personally. Excited for you, and just thank you for being around the last 3 years.
Usually I go last, but I'm going to go before Yosief goes. A few years ago when, I started Cincinnati Soccer Talk, I apologize. I don't remember the name. Maybe Yosief remembers who it was. A gentleman I mentioned, sent an email to the club saying, "Hey, look, I'm looking to start a podcast about FC Cincinnati." And then they kind of got me in contact with Yosief. And I've never met Yosief before. I think he still had his UC email address. So he was still a college student. And, I emailed him and said, "Hey, look, I'm looking to start the podcast. What are your thoughts?" And he had said something like, "Yeah, I was thinking about starting a podcast as well with a couple of guys." And, we started a GroupMe. I think that was the app back then. I can't remember if it was, I think it was GroupMe. I could be wrong about that. But so that was back in August, like literally as the club was announced. And then like a few months went by, and I would send a message to Yosief here and there, and be like, "Hey, what's going on? Are we doing this or what?" And then, "Oh yeah, we're gonna do this. We're gonna do this. I swear." And then like February hits, and I'm thinking, "Okay, we've got to get going on this because the team's gonna play games here in like 2 weeks. So, what's the story?" And Yosief was like, you know what? I was really counting on these other guys to do it. They're not really on board. I'm in. And Yosief hopped in full speed right away. And I cannot thank you enough, Yosief, for everything that you've done here at CST, for all the work you put in, for being on the show. For at times being a punchline with the free pizza and the Instagram posts and the social media posts. And as Brad said, we know that you're a busy guy outside of CST. You've got a lot on your plate with your career, and we couldn't be more proud of you and where you've come in such a short amount of time there with what you're doing. And we're gonna miss having you around. But I'm looking forward to a big giant hug when we see each other, either at Mecklenburg or wherever we're at a pregame match. So I can't thank you enough for everything you've done for CST.
Thanks, man. God, you guys are trying to make me cry. Not working, though. Like Trisha said today, only one tear, and I will shed it after the show. Yeah, no, it's been an awesome ride. When I started here, I had a lot less direction and responsibilities in life. I still lack the direction part, I suppose, but I do have more responsibilities. It's sad, but it's, with how everything's moving, I just can't commit the time, which it sucks, but we've built lifelong relationships with each other, and I'm confident that won't change. And I really, like I said, I appreciate everything you guys have done for me. You guys kind of watched me grow up in a way. I mean, like I should have grown up a long time ago, but the important parts of me have grown up, I suppose. There's still some work to be done there, depending on who you ask. But yeah, this has been a great ride. It's awesome to be known as like at work and as the soccer guy. And man, it's the end of an era, but it's crazy to think about how far we came in since everything started a few years ago. So looking forward to seeing you guys do bigger and better things. And as this site, this show, this organization continues to grow. And yeah, thanks for everything.
Oh man, we're gonna miss you, buddy. And we're gonna. It just means we have to do reunion shows, and maybe a live show. Have you down there? Hopefully, I can be down there. My goodness. But again, I think I say this for all of us here at CST. We're proud of you. You got a lot going on there. Keep up the good work, and don't be a stranger, buddy.
For sure, man. For sure. I'll still see you around.
And on that note, it is time we wrap things up. Again, if you want to help support the show, head on over to CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com/support. Rate and review the show on iTunes. The ratings and reviews do certainly help. Get subscribed as well so you don't miss a single episode of CST. We do record the show live every Monday night at 9 o'clock Eastern on Facebook, YouTube, and Periscope and Twitch. But again, if you can't make the live show, get subscribed to the podcast so you don't miss a single episode of CST. That is going to do it for this episode of the podcast. Again, my thanks to Brad. Yosief, you have one more thing to add.
I would, since it's my last show, can I do the close?
Oh, all right. Okay, then. If you want to do that, go for it, buddy.
Yeah.
Before you do that, though, I just want to remind everybody, I want everybody to have a happy and safe Thanksgiving. All right, Yosief.
Okay. For Brad, Brian, and Subes, I'm Yosief, and watch your tackles. We'll see you next week.
Yeah. And we're out.